Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. Today, I kind of want to take a slightly different tactic. I actually want to take a fairly direct quote from Mr. Triple H, the man of three H's, as we may know. Uh, but I want to take that what he said basically I think it was a few days ago, actually might have been a week ago now, but apply it to TNA. And I'm not exactly quoting him here, but he basically said, we have a lot of people that want to come to WWE or want to come back to WWE, and we can't, take all of them. I think this relates to the Andrade situation where they brought him back, and I think not the response, but the response has kind of been lukewarm, but also their ability to use him has kind of been like, well, you're here, but we're not really trying, and maybe they didn't really care to try too hard with him. But the thing of it is, it's weird to me that they thought that they had something with him, or he had something, and that he was worth bringing back. So, and then they tried it and it failed. I think that is good, that they are willing to try things, and maybe they don't know exactly whether somebody's going to get over, or whether they can use somebody. Maybe there was something else behind that, but I don't want to go too deep into this. But I want to apply this same idea to TNA. I think that the TNA roster right now is very thin, but the thing about the TNA roster right now, despite how thin it is, almost everyone on that roster is a superstar in their own right. Not literally everyone, and not literally every team or whatever, but literally most of the roster you can look at and you go, these people have superstar written all over them. Mike Santana, absolutely superstar. Leon Slater, absolute young superstar. So many people like Eric Young, maybe a legend, maybe an old superstar, the Hardys, obviously superstars. But everyone feels like they're almost on that same level of not notoriety, but once you see them, they have that aura. If somebody else was to come into the company, and a few people have come into the company and come out of the company and whatnot throughout the years, but if somebody was to come into that company, they have to fit onto that level, basically. If you're not on the same level as the rest of the roster, immediately you fall into the lower card of guys, because you don't have that same aura that everyone else has. You don't feel like a big enough deal, so you're not gonna make it. You need to be in the top percent of people to be on that roster for the most part, and to really fit in. Now there's a few younger talent that are there that are kind of making their way, so to speak. I don't know what else to sort of say, but they're slowly developing. Sinner and Saint, they're slowly developing. I still think Leon Slater has a way to develop, but he certainly has that superstar aura about him. So I still think that there is a lot of people there that are on a certain level, and that's what I think the fans are kind of looking for a lot of the time. It is kind of annoying sometimes to be like, man, people only want the top 1% superstars that we can get. But I understand it. People want the guys that make an impact. So, no pun intended. But so when you say this comparative to TNA, that there are so many people that want to come to TNA, and there are so many people that want to come back to TNA, I think, again, you've got to be somewhat selective. I do think that, as I said, the roster is very thin right now, but I think that there has been a few really good additions to it, Cedric Alexander being like one of them, though that doesn't make up enough people in that like X division or that like upper mid-card area sort of thing. And he hasn't even won a single goddamn match as far as what I'm aware of. Maybe he won a few matches on Explosion or something, but like he hasn't won a match on TV or pay-per-view. Like I think he actually, no, they didn't win that tag match, did they? So like he hasn't won a single match since he's been there. So like I don't know what you're going to do with him from there. You kind of need to do something with him, and like heel turn could be coming, I don't know. But like yeah, like when you look at, I don't know, the indie roster of people or whatever that are out there, like I said this before a while back, like there wasn't that many names back then, and there might be a few more now, like Gigi Dolan and whatnot, some of the latest WWE releases, and you could talk about Andrade potentially having potential in TNA. Actually, I want to mention Kiera Hogan really quickly because she could come to TNA as well. She could go to WWE, whatever, who knows. But this is reflected in like a lot of the choices that WWE have made. They have brought AJ Lee back. They've brought like several other people in and out and whatnot and whatever. They have released a few people as well because they felt like they weren't working or they weren't what they were looking for or whatever it was. I think that they 100% like missed on the new hire, Mara Sade. She is like an amazing character thus far. I think she needs a lot of work still, but I still think that she is a big potential in the future. So, and even not even in the long term, like she could still like be a top contender, you know, in that division, or she could be a tag team wrestler. If you find her the right partner, like I said before, she should team with Tasha, but I don't know whether that's going to happen. I still am kind of like hoping that Tasha and her kind of mix it up some more, because like I still haven't kind of seen enough of those two. Kind of want to see like street fight or something between those two. I still want to see more of a long-term feud with them. It's an interesting position now. Like in TNA, you kind of look at this, the whole scene is going to change a lot soon. And maybe like it is a money issue. And that is perhaps one of the issues, is that it's like we just don't have the funds to really, you know, bring in enough people or really fund some really big contracts or whatever else. So that might be one of the big issues, and I do feel like that has been a big issue. You let Josh Alexander go, you let Ace Austin go, and even if like you say, well, Josh Alexander, he had done everything. Well, Eddie Edwards had done everything like a few years ago, but yet he was still on the roster, been on the roster for the last like 10 plus years. Moose, you know, now is like coming to the point where you start thinking he's basically done everything in the company, you know, sort of thing. And obviously he's looking to retire at some point, like once his contract's up, which is like not far away, honestly, either. Though again, you can take that with a grain of salt, obviously, never say never or whatever, but still, I would say, like, if you think like what would fit, like I actually think Mace Warner is actually a really great pickup, but the thing is, like, you need to keep him strong and keep him on TV and keep him at that semi-main event level. You need to give him some stuff to do, and you need to keep him like Like, I think, like, maybe that will happen sooner rather than, like, maybe at Bound for Glory, like I said. Maybe there'll be something there for him. Like, the quarter shot, I'd love it to see him, like, just about every single week pulling out the quarter shot and saying, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get, like, that sort of thing. Like, I'll do it, like, coming closer each time to cashing it in or whatever else it is, and then, like, seemingly it's so far away, but it's the big tease type thing, like, nah, I'm gonna cash it in now, like, type thing. That, like, subversion of expectations type thing. You don't think it's gonna come, and it's been teased for so long, and then it's like, oh, he's walking away, he's walking away, he's walking away. Or he's so far away, he's not really going to cash it in. He's not even as close as what he was, last week or the week before. He's getting further away, further away, further away, kind of thing. Like, I think that would be, like, interesting or good or whatever. But, like, back to the point, saying, like, if you look at that indie scene, again, how many people on that indie scene, or maybe even in some other promotions like New Japan, AAA, whatever else, could come to TNA and actually be something of note, or somebody that, people would like to see. Like, I'd like to see some of the, like, New Japan guys see some of that G1 Climax sort of stuff, the Super Juniors sort of stuff. That'd be cool, again, to see some more of that, or just see some, like, let's bring in a whole bunch of people and do some more X Games stuff. Like, or you do that same sort of thing, like, do the G1 Climax, but do it for the international title kind of thing. You have all these, like, things that you're doing, that you bring in all these wrestlers that, are from Japan, from Mexico, from here, from there, from wherever. Perhaps the US border disputes, like, etc., is preventing that or whatever. But, like, again, that's another reason to get out of the US, guys. But still, like, you still do that sort of thing. You bring in people, you start saying, okay, let's have Macklin, like, a six-pack challenge sort of thing, and then have all these different matches for people to try to get opportunities at the title, same sort of thing. Like, it's tough to do that long term, but for short term, it would be interesting. I think you've got to really pick talented performers in the ring, certainly, but you've also got to pick talented character performers. You can't, like, this is, like, I think I can't remember which, I actually have said this actually probably in a few videos, but I did say it fairly recently, but I can't remember which video it was, that I said basically you can't just have, like, a guy that's a really great technical wrestler or a guy that's a really great character wrestler. You've, like, the perfect wrestler for TNA wrestling is, like, an amalgamation of both of those things. That's, like, why I was so excited when Jonathan Gresham finally had, like, this crazy octopus character that they came out with, and why I was so disappointed with that character, not really going anywhere and not really doing anything with that character, because it was like, this is the best thing that, he's, like, I've seen him do. Like, this is great. This is, this is amazing. This should go into a world title, run. Now he finally has an interesting gimmick to go along with the fact that he can wrestle like no one else. And yeah, let's just keep doing this. Let's just keep this thing rolling as long as possible and give this guy, a lot of things. They've actually missed on a lot of things in some ways. And then sometimes I feel like, well, maybe, like, you could, wash that away or say, oh, well, whatever or whatnot. They were trying something else, or they were looking for something else, or whatever else it was. And again, perhaps that was like, we'll see how we bring in this person. Let's see how the audience reacts to them, and let's see how,
like they fit in or how we can use them. And that's also another one of those things that it seems like it's crazy. It is a good thing that there is so much stuff on TV every single week, but it's like sometimes you don't see people for weeks and weeks on end. And yet you see some of the same people every single week. It's like we haven't seen Mace Warner do anything for a while. We haven't seen this person do anything for a while. And it kind of feels like, oh, they've kind of been forgotten about. But here we see these people all the goddamn time. And it's kind of like, yeah, these guys are, like, Moose is super important. Joe Hendry's super important, although we're seeing less and less and less of him. It's like Santana's very important. You know, like, these guys are very important, but like at a certain point is very much like, you know, well, whatever, who cares at a certain point, because you can't just rely on those guys. Yes, they need to be there, but they don't have to be there every single week. And that's like one good thing about like Joe Hendry not being there in some ways is it's like, well, now we need to start stepping it up and we need to start going, who have we got? Who can we bring in? Because again, like, you're going to probably lose Joe Hendry. You're going to probably lose the Hardys, potentially. And so then what are you going to do from there? Actually, I think, like, losing the Hardys would, like, I don't want to speak ill of them or bad about them or whatever else, you know, about them. But I honestly think losing the Hardys now or at Bound for Glory or just after Bound for Glory actually would be a good thing for TNA, because then you don't have to pander to this nostalgia act that, you know, I think has run its course in many ways. You know, like, they have had moments and glimmers of greatness here and there, but like, I think like for the most part, like, again, I feel like they really need to have somebody beat the everlasting shit out of these guys and send them packing, because that's the point at which they're at. They're, you know, some dogs that haven't got really any bite left anymore. And the only, like, they should be limited in the ring. They're already very limited in the ring, but they should be limited in the ring to doing very little now. Like, I think there was like 2 or 3 matches that they just absolutely dominated. And it was like, dude, what are you guys doing? You guys can't keep up this pace. And it looks fake, you know, it doesn't look real because you guys are, you know, 40 something and Matt just turned 51. Like, but yet you're beating up these guys that are in their 20s and 30s that are in the prime of their life. What? Like, if you're like fighting really hard and whatnot, okay, or like if you're like using some like tactics or whatever else it is, then it can work out. But like, it's the same with a lot of people that have gotten a lot older now. Like, they just can't go to that level that you kind of expect from them. So I think like the bar is certainly pretty high. Like, some innovative stuff is cool and good, but like, and I think that is cool, and I do want them to get their moments. But the thing is, like, they don't need the belts. Like, they mostly haven't needed those belts. But, like, they've held them an awfully long time, and it's like, well, not really, but, like, and they held them, like, last year an awfully long time, really, and it was like, then the Nemesis, like, won them, and, like, nothing really came out of that. Like, I don't want to keep going on and on and on about this, but like, if you're looking at where the roster is going to change, obviously the tag team division is going to change, and that upper main event scene is going to have to change. Also, you're going to have to inject a whole lot of X Division guys. Just a whole lot of X Division guys. And that's going to be tough because it's like, you can't introduce them all at the same time very easily. But yet, if you don't introduce a lot of people very quickly, like, the division just feels like completely empty. Like, and the same for the international division. It's like, like I really think like you need to kind of pick a lane in some regards, because I think that international title is kind of like also tying up space for people that could be in that main event scene, or people that could be, going to the tag team scene, or just like in another area. So like again, dividing people up even more feels like, especially with such a thin roster, that it's like, you know, it is very tough for that title and that division to feel like, Steve carries it really well, but it's very much like, what the heck is going on? Because, you know, how can you see that this is going to continue? With hardly anyone left in that division for him to face. Maybe you've got like Primetime Alexander or whatever in that division. Maybe, like, I don't know. I can't even think of anyone else that's kind of like coming into that division. But go back to the tag team scene. At least there's a few tag teams there. Like, most of them aren't like super built up yet. And that's the problem. Like I don't know what's happening with First Class. I think that was like one of the biggest tag teams that they kind of had, and now Rich Swann is gone. Like, where is he at? Like, did they fire him again, or what? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. Maybe there was like backlash to bringing him back or whatever it was. I really don't know. So, but like, there's some other stuff kind of going on, and like with Marsha Slamovich right now, I don't know whether I'm going to cover that, because it does affect the upcoming pay-per-view in some ways, and potentially more stuff down the road. But that's a big cog in your engine, kind of that division, that you might lose or you might not have access to anymore. Like, now that they might be bringing Tessa Blanchard back, that might be like, I don't think that that's part of the reason, but like, it might be partly a good reason to bring her back in some ways, even if people disagree with that. I think like they want to finish a certain story there with her, and like they've been setting that up in some regards. So like, we will wait to see where that goes, hopefully. But hopefully we do get something out of it. But again, you've got to look at it like, yeah, I'm sure there are people, perhaps, and there's been people before, that have come into TNA. And like, had a decent few moments or whatever else it is, or something, whatever, but has it worked out? So I think I can't say like Elijah, this is like the thing with him, I can't say that you should just keep like bringing in ex-WWE guys. Like, that's not the solution. You can't just bring in ex-WWE guys or ex-AEW guys or whatever else it is, or even ex-TNA guys or whatever it is. You've got to bring in people that will draw. That's the be-all and end-all of it. So, and even if you're bringing in somebody young to become, like, on that roster, that's the idea. Okay, how do we manufacture this person into a draw? How do we work with this kid, like Leon or whoever, to make this kid a draw? It's not, and again, like I was saying this about, I can't remember who it was now, actually. Who was it? I think, it was Danny Luna, I think. Someone was saying about, like, I'm glad to see, like, her getting a push finally. And they said, but it's a pity she didn't win this match and it was a DQ and all of this sort of stuff. And I was saying, yeah, like, sometimes it's not just about wins and losses, but of course, you've got to also give people wins so that they're credible, because if you just be like they went stupid and went crazy or whatever it was for no real reason, then it's like, why? Why did they go crazy? Why? What for? You know, um, and like, like if you're setting that up to be a character thing going forward, okay, that's cool. So you're gonna say this person has become more unhinged or whatever. Okay, cool. You can sort of do the same thing like I was saying with Danny Luna with Mace. Start making that like her thing. Or you can kind of do what Rosemary has kind of done. Like I think the more people that you have that are like Rosemary in some ways, the less effective those characters sometimes are. So I feel like Rosemary knows that she can't keep going for a lot longer, but she wants to go as long as what she can, obviously. So I think she's like winding down her career in some ways, in some forms. But then again, you never know. Like, she might just be kind of like holding on to like, to like go and like be like, okay, rest now, come back later, like then I can do something, or just hoping for opportunities maybe and being like, okay, here's another opportunity or somebody that I want to work with. And like that whole thing of like with Zaya Brookside, like they were almost like doing that with her where she was becoming a little bit more unhinged and whatnot, but that suddenly like came to mean like nothing because like you weren't ready to elevate her into that position of like now she can be the Knockouts champion or whatever, but you're still trying to build her up. So I don't really know, like maybe that storyline should have been a bit more drawn out. I don't know, but it's tough to say because you've always kind of got to keep the wheels moving and you've got to kind of give people payoffs. So it's tough to do, I guess. But like again, like just moving somebody back down the pegs and like not giving them something so significant to do and now just forcing them into a makeshift tag team mostly is like, oh, okay, well, like that's the sort of thing you like. That's my like thought process of thinking like if like the women's division is pretty decent. Certainly I still think that there could be like some things like better, but still like I do think that there is a lot of like positive things going on and whatnot mostly. So I think mostly you can look at it going in the right direction. You need to keep it going though, and like these things with Marsha or whatever, that sort of stuff can't derail it. You've got to keep the thing alive, keep it going, keep it working and working to a high level, like so that even further, like especially if like hopefully they are not gonna I don't want them to change what the upcoming card is, because it's like I feel like they need to finish what they've kind of started. So I hope that does go ahead, but because again, like if you're just going to substitute somebody in, it's going to be a really like crazy like thing to try to make work with only 1 week's build or whatever. So I hope that they do deliver on that, because again, I still think you've got like maybe you can just be like, I don't know, do something else. I don't know, but it would be really difficult, like, obviously, but still, like, I think if you change it, there's like almost zero hype behind it. So again, I feel like you've already kind of got the situation, so keep going. So, but I do hope that whatever situation there is resolved. I don't know what to believe. I'm not gonna take sides, like I said, but whatever. I'm not really going to talk about this too much, but I just wanted to mention it because and sort of explore it a little bit at least, because otherwise somebody's going to say, "Hey, what about this?" Okay, yes, but don't think about that. So again, like, you could have opportunity there for another person to come in to TNA, but like, I do think that unfortunately, like, again, you look at it this way, like, a lot of people, a lot of wrestlers would look at TNA as saying, yeah, I can go there, but I'm not really like going there to go there per se. And then it's fine if people want to be like, oh yeah, I'm just using it as a pad to try to get to WWE or whatever, get myself out there, or whatever. That's my goal, okay, or whatever. I was in WWE or whatever, so I want to get back there, and like, I can do that with like working with TNA, so like, why not? Um, so, but yeah, you've got to like bring in new stars. You can't just rely on the old stars, but you've got to have some of those old stars. I think like Brian Myers like fits into like, not old stars, because I don't think he was ever that big of a star, but he was certainly known among wrestling fans, and I think like he didn't get like a biggest fair shake of the stick. Matt Cardona in a similar boat, never really got the best shake of the stick, but now like he's had all that knowledge, of working, and it's like, okay, cool, now I'm going to go on the indies, reinvent myself, try to get back there, but also try to help, the young crop of talent, because I can already get myself over very easily, which he's proven, but mostly as a heel, honestly. But again, like, he can get himself very over very easily, and like, he doesn't really have to try too hard at that to make that work. But yeah, like, now you start saying, if we're gonna bring in somebody, or we're gonna pull someone, here or whatever, like, they're not the focus. Like, Brian Myers and JDC aren't the focus. They're just kind of there, like, they're there to help, put other guys over mostly, and that's their role, like, like, I know people don't like, we say like the term jobber, and that's perhaps like derogatory or what have you. This person's just a jobber, or that person's just been jobbing, or whatever else it is. But it's not so much a derogatory of like that person. It's just a fact. That is what this person is doing. That is their role, and the jobbing role is actually a really important role in some ways. People forget this, but you need people to be there, to be not the bottom fish, but like like the guys who just look up at the lights, because without your supporting cast, like, who does Stone Cold beat when he has to go up against The Rock? Well, you can't, like, sometimes the Stone Cold can beat The Rock, but 9 times out of 10, you've got to think like, okay, we need to build The Rock up. We need to have The Rock feel like he's on the same level as Steve Austin. We can't just have The Rock lose all the time to Steve Austin, we have to put a foil in there or have to put somebody else in there or whatever else it is to make that work, to make it make sense, to make it, happen or whatever else it is, so that, you get there this way or you get there that way or what have you. So when you I'm trying to think about, like, when you have this goal in mind of saying, okay, we're bringing in this new talent, like sometimes like these talent have got to lose to win, you know what I mean, especially babyface wrestlers. You've got to lose to get that, like, kind of like sympathy, but you've got to win to kind of like be like, he's not just a loser. He's not just like this guy that can't make it happen. He's this guy that got screwed over by this person and by that person and by whatever else, by this group or by this thing or by that thing, or whatever it was. So again, you've got to paint your hero, if you're bringing somebody in, like somebody who needs sympathy, but, also like in an outraged sort of way of like, this person was robbed, like that sort of thing. Like, so, and it's kind of like the opposite if you want to bring in somebody that's a heel. You want people to absolutely loathe these guys if you're bringing them in. So on day one or on moment one, this is what they did with, what's this guy's name who just recently attacked Santana? I can't remember his, Ridge Holland, was it? So that's what they did. Like, they had a good baby face there, and they said, okay, you go attack Santana, because that will give you some amount of heat, because people like Santana, and you'll get a, reaction because, hey, you're attacking their guy, So, like, and if you do a good job, you'll get a really good reaction. Or if people react to you or see you and, like, connect to you, or if you connect with them, they will really, like, find something with you and connect with you and all this sort of stuff. So I don't think that has happened. Like, this is one of the things about, like, the current state of TNA now, is that you've got to really think, like, the TNA roster isn't, or what's happening on TNA isn't just the TNA roster. You've got to consider it like that it is also the NXT people, though. Like, sometimes there's a few NXT people on there, and sometimes there's like none. I think like TNA could actually do a fairly good job with certain NXT talent if certain NXT talent were in TNA, because like when some of these talent were in TNA, like they, like, and perhaps some of this is WWE stuff, but like TNA has to write this stuff, TNA has to film this stuff, TNA has to, go through everything to make these things, not just be like calling WWE, hey, we want to, put these guys in this tag team match. What should they do? Let's block out everything. No, they're like, dude, okay, you're sending us these people or this person or whatever else it is. Okay, cool. We'll figure out the matches, or we'll have our guys call the matches, or whatever, like, they figure it out. They don't just call WWE and be like, we've forgotten how to book, so, because it's your guys suddenly, so tell us what you want to do with, your guys. Maybe there is a conversation of saying, hey, so you want to send us this person, that person, this person, that person, or whatever else it is. Um, and this is what you kind of want to do with them. Like what is it you want us to do with them besides like just showcase what they can do? Like what stories, or what angles, or what do we want? Where are we going? Like what is like everything? How does this team, or how do we make sure we can capture these guys because they have an entrance or they have this? So where do our cameras need to be, and when do the lights need to come up, and when do we need to do this, and when does this need to happen, and how do it, like, so you could just take it from like seeing their WWE's production, or you could be like, okay, let's work with what we've got, or let's let the camera guys or whatever just like go, okay, this is what we think, this is the next shot, this is the next shot, whatever, this looks good, that looks good. But like I said, like it is amazing in some ways. Like before, like they've had a lot of people on their roster, and like they've found ways to utilize them. Like they had a fairly big roster a couple of years ago, so, but it's not like everyone got used all the time. But like you can't have people getting forgotten about. You can't, especially like if they're a champion. And that's maybe where it is. Like there might be a few too many championships or whatever, or there's not enough people in each division to make it like work, especially the women's tag team division, or not enough of these like teams or whatever else it is, or not enough of these individuals are over enough to the point that, are they ever going to get there? Or does it feel like that? How does this person resolve their story? How do they finally get to that point? Are you going to like, I don't know where, I think if you're looking like, I don't want to go too deep into this, but you look at Jake something. I said this before, like he could be something. Could be something. But you've got to put him in that position and start saying, okay, like you've got this bit of a story now that you're starting to tell with him, helping Frankie Kazarian and all of this other stuff. So, but like it shouldn't just be he's like a bad guy. He's just like, I'm sick of everything and I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything and all of this sort of stuff and whatnot, but nothing's worked, like, so maybe I should listen because, Frankie has been so successful for so many years and and all of that, So you've got to have those explanations. It's not just, I'm bad and I hate people or whatever. We had him and Macklin had a rivalry, long time, well, not long time, but for a fair while. And so he might still feel, or he, like logically could feel like, oh man, that wasn't fair or whatever else it was and all this and whatever. So you're sort of starting to build him, not by wins yet, but you're starting to set a story for him that hopefully will culminate at some point and he will start to become something bigger and become a big star. So that's the idea at some point, somewhere. So you're still investing in that guy in some ways because you're giving him, a position and story time. So, and it's cool. Like last week they had, was it Travis Williams beat? Oh, I said this before in another episode. They had him beat Eric Young. So, that's crazy, and Like I said before, I don't know whether that's going to lead to a match at Victory Road. I don't know whether Ridge Holland and Santana is going to be at Victory Road. Maybe could be on the countdown. I don't know. Though I don't know. Still, whatever. But I feel like you might push Eric Young and Joe to Bound for Glory. I said this before, and I said like, or I think I might have done. I don't know, but I was thinking like, if you're gonna put them in a match and Joe's pretty much leaving after Bound for Glory, so it's like, well, time to start losing and losing in some big ways. It's like Eric Young, like, he doesn't really need that win. Like, somebody else needs that win way more. I don't know, like, there are a few, like Jake something, maybe, I don't know. He's not really ready for a win like that, so I don't know. Maybe AJ Francis, he's in there and he needs wins, so I could see that. This is the story you've kind of got right now, so this is obviously that's where it's kind of going, unfortunately. So it's like, well, hopefully that will, elicit something and we will get there at some point to, say, hey, finally here we are with this Eric, because Eric's again, just recently put somebody over, but really needs to put somebody over big, or a lot of people over big time after that, so that you can elevate some of those people into those positions. And again, he's so good that he can get himself heat and he can get himself over, so it's not very hard for him to stay somewhat positioned. Frankie has done some like great work, but like I said before, like you either should have pulled the trigger or you shouldn't have pulled the trigger. You should have said, like, if you had said, okay, Ethan Page is going to challenge at Emergence or whatever, and then Kazarian's going to challenge at Rebellion, that would have probably worked better. Honestly, that probably would have been like a better like plan, like, or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, but I don't know, dude. Because like the tag match was like so pitifully not bad, but not like worth it. It wasn't a great main event match. You should have just had a title match, and like you needed more jeopardy for Hendry anyway. So like that's the idea. But anyway, as I said, it's the same thing. Like with the guys and the gals who are there, like I certainly don't think it's the same as WWE, because they don't have the resources of what WWE has, and not even AEW in many cases. But again, they certainly have resources to bring in talent. They have done it. Harley Hudson and Myla Grace, and Leon Slater, and many others. I don't want to go through all of them. But, like some of those guys, and some of them are panning out pretty well. Like Leon's panning out really well. And I think Harley and Myla would pan out really well if they weren't like not on TV if they were on TV more, like they're just on Explosion all the time. And if they just didn't constantly lose, like, so it's like, you've got to be doing something there with them as well. You've kind of got to be like, yeah, what are we going to do with you? Like, we're not just going to keep, like, you guys either off TV and losing or whatever. But you could, I guess, but there's got to be more to it. So that's what I mean. Like, where are you going to situate somebody? Because there's not a lot of room in some ways, but there's also a lot of room in many other ways. Because, like, if NXT talent, well, not that they'll go away, but like it's very intermittent as to when they're gonna send even just the measly of scraps over to TNA's way. So it's like, well, at a certain point, that's what we've got to expect. We're not going to get very much, really out of this for a while. But like, I do think about that. I do think like the lack of NXT might be like not be a big thing, because it's like now they've started this big invasion angle, so it's going to be like, well, there's going to be even more crossover now, like until this thing is over one way or the other. Like, I don't know whether like the end is at Bound for Glory. Like, maybe like Santana does win back the belt, but is that the end of it? Like, you're still gonna have like, and that's actually might be a good thing. Like I said this before, like, because like I don't want to say all, but there's not a lot of, not that again that there's none, but Kazarian and Eric Young, I've got to cut. Like, especially Eric Young, I've got to cut, because it's like, dude, that dude is not like these dudes. Like, if you were going to put the belt on them, you should have already done it. Like, or whatever. At least in my opinion, it's time to have done it already. So, and it's like they're in that phase where it's like, they've, even if you say Frankie's never won the title, well, too bad. At a certain point, so they could do this, they could do that, but like it is very much that you need to look at it and say, well, or whatever. At a certain point, he's the guy that is one of the top guys that helps put people over to that last little hurdle to get them to that next level. That's it. He could be the international champion. I still don't think that makes like the most sense, but you could give it to him for a short period of time, or you could give him the world title for a short period of time, and then say, okay, or whatever it is, 6 months. I say that's a fairly short period of time, but it would be, really in some ways. But anyway, you do that for 6 months, you build up a big challenger, a big time babyface, and you have them beat Kazarian. Then they're a made man after that, main person, whatever. Like, that's a lot of what wrestling is and what wrestling does. You get these things that happen over, 6 month, year long period, whatever else it is. And then you have your new, like, babyface that you're going to run with for a while. And then you've got to find heels to kind of stop them. And then you've got to, build babyfaces, through that, and, get them to, being, hey, okay, these people are looking for this person, and people have to realize, that, all that chanting and cheering and whatnot, it isn't just like they're not listening, they're waiting for the right time, and they're trying to draw it out. That's also probably why they're, like lagging in some ways. Like, as I said before, perhaps it's a monetary issue, and perhaps it's like, well, we have too much money locked up in the Hardys. Well, I don't know how much they paid Joe Hendry, but like still, like same with Moose. I don't know how much they paid him, but again, they probably paid him a fair bit. But still, they probably have a lot of money tied up in that sort of thing. So it's like, well, we want to, well, we can't really renegotiate, so we've got to wait until those contracts run out, and that we have more money available to like bring on more people, and they might be waiting for that new streaming TV deal, whatever else it is, to come along and be like, hey, okay, cool, we're actually going to get a fair amount of money and whatnot out of this, or at least something, so that we can start going, okay, cool, now we have more money, we have more resources. I don't know, sometimes, like, they should have another TV show. And like I said this before with Explosion, how to fix it or how to make it better or whatever. I said before, make Explosion the same length as Impact and make it not just the B show, but make it a proper, like, show that not competes with it, but like showcases more stuff, because you've got so many people, you've got so much stuff that you can do with them, but yet you don't really do that with them, and here you are just putting on, all these basically just squash matches most of the time on Explosion. That's just like a random, like, house show or dark match or whatever. So that won't cut it. Like, that cuts it for like the live crowd, but when you rebroadcast it, it doesn't cut it for like. And actually, in some ways it is good, because sometimes you get to see like who they're trying out or whatever else it is. You get to see, like, is this person gonna make it? Like, this person's made a few appearances of late or whatever else it is. So obviously that they see something in that person. So you can see the potential of like somebody, like, this isn't really their debut. This is just, their proper TV debut or whatever. And that can help them get them ready for TV as well, because it is taped and they can see it, and you can, help them, find their way. It's not just about like who are we going to bring on and why. It's saying, okay, how do we mold them, or how do we help them showcase themselves, like, into a star? Like, that's the goal in some ways. How do we make people care one way or the other? And yeah, just like make it work or whatever. So I do hope that we can continue to like look at, like, I might look at some point at like more specifically who's out there, who do we want or whatever. But that's not my call, like, and I'm not gonna, like, I see sometimes people out there saying TNA hire this person, TNA hire that person, like, hire this person, hire that person, or whatever. It's the same idea. Like, there's so many people saying hire this person, hire that person, or whatever else it is, or hire me, hire me, hire me, please, or whatever. You know, if as I am, I would be like, dude, like, if they pick me up, cool. Like, same with WWE or anything, anywhere. Like, I would love to work for TNA. Absolutely love to work for TNA, because they are the company that I root for and follow for and whatnot and all of that stuff. But I still will, point out their, critiques or whatever else or whatnot. So, or their shortcomings or whatever else, if I think it's legit or whatever in some regards or whatever. So, but yeah, I do think that some people take it too far and whatnot as well. Like, I think, like, Cultaholic just, I think, was, yeah, or not Cultaholic, whatever they're called now, whatever. They put out a thing about Monty Brown, the like biggest miss in TNA. Whatever, sure, but like, that was like over 20 years ago, dude. Get over it, type thing in a certain way, get over it, bro. And it's never anything like helpful. It's like, always these things where it's like, oh, they fucked that up, they fucked this up, they fucked that up. you know. But yeah, certainly, I think, again, you know, you've got to have all these things. And I know you guys probably know all this as well, but you know, it's one of those processes. We've always got to discuss these things. You know, I do at least, because I've got a YouTube channel and I've got to make content. So it's one of those things. I've got to make content, guys. So, you know, at least, you know, like before it might be like I couldn't make it because it's like, oh, I'm busy. And I am getting more busy now because again, I'm starting to look at doing more stuff, so I might not do as many episodes, or I might, just because I'm too obsessed with wrestling, whatever, but still is what it is. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one any which way, and I hope you will join me again in another one.